Start taping. Sorry, YouTube. Good afternoon, everyone. Welcome to the Ways and Means Committee. Today is Tuesday, March 30th. We have before us today 6 Senate bills, which are sponsor only, but for those who are interested can certainly have, there's written testimony that's been submitted. We're going to start today with Senate Bill 415. We have Chairman Pinsky. Please go ahead.
Thank you. Thank you, Madam Chairman and members of the committee. Senate Bill 415 is Public Financing Act for the gubernatorial election. As most of you know, it's been used in the general election twice in the last 20 years. And in the last primary, it was used by a couple of candidates. So we have a couple of problems. One, the fund has been drawn down, so there's not enough to ensure candidates can use it in the next gubernatorial election. That's the first problem. Secondly, over time, we've learned some lessons in terms of how you provide a match on public funding. And a number of local jurisdictions, including Montgomery County, the home county of the chairwoman, has been through this now a couple of times, and they understand how to have the most bang for the buck and encouragement of having small donors. So this bill extends the program and makes some alterations to the match. The Senate has decided it's worth the money, and we've talked to Budget and Tax on that. We think it should be available. Who knows if any candidates in the general election or the primary will use it. Our belief is this will fund, I think, and Jared can correct me, 2 candidates in the primary and at least 1 in the general, depending if they use it. Again, it's optional. For those who are new to public financing, it's optional. But if someone takes the money, they have to stay within the limits afforded in the legislation. So, you know, if you think we should continue the program and have a more effective match to receive the public financing, you should support and move this bill. If you think it's not something in the public interest, my sense is you'd probably oppose it. But over the last 5 years, more and more local jurisdictions have moved to public financing. Montgomery, Baltimore County, Baltimore City, I think did it by local referendum. Prince George's is set to pursue it, I think, in 26. So it is, and Howard County as well. So it is growing. I've been a fan of it. I think it ought to be for the legislature as well. But because of finances, that's not what this bill is about. It's simply for the gubernatorial election. With that, Madam Chairman, I'd be happy to answer any questions.
Thank you, Chairman Pinsky. Delegate Hornberger with a question.
Yes, thank you, Senator, for bringing this great bill to our committee. Back during the 13-14 cycle, there were some pundits and folks that were, talking about the race. And one of the concerns that they had was that, the soon-to-be Governor Hogan, that there wasn't enough money in the fund to go to the big race. In other words, the funding parameters were good for the primary, but based on historical information and what gubernatorial candidates generally raise, that there wasn't enough money in that fund and because of the cap to participate. Now, he did go on to win, obviously, and we all got reelected and whatnot, but could you talk a little bit on how the caps are for the primary in general and if those are going to be changed with this bill?
Well, I'm going to give a partial answer. Then, if you don't mind, I'd like to defer to Mr. Demarinis, who has helped shepherd this along for a long time now.
Sure.
The reason for this, I think, is obvious. For people who don't want to go to deep pockets and spend a whole lot of time on the phone and want to encourage grassroots givers of $5, $25, $50, or $100. Some states, Arizona and Maine, have been doing it for 30 years, and they haven't gone backwards. And they've had gubernatorial candidates, legislative candidates across the board use it. But in terms of your specific question about the limit for the gubernatorial race and whether it's appropriate, let me, if you don't mind, I'd like to send it over to Jared.
No, that's great. Thank you.
All right. Jared Demarinis, Director of Candidacy and Campaign Finance, for the record. Delegate, to answer your question, so this is modernizing the public financing program. So the one that Governor Hogan ran under was an expenditure limit. So it was like a cap, and basically we gave him a check for I think something between $2 to $3 million for the general election. Here, The cap is on how much public funds, public contributions that you'll be eligible to receive. So that cap now is $3 million, but you can still raise as many individual contributions up to $250 as you want. So it's taking away the expenditure portion of it and just putting it on the match. So it modernizes it in response to the other circumstances that face campaigns. So it gives more flexibility, and it still keeps the small donor element intact, as well as making sure that the individuals abide by all the I would say the safeguards in place, which is you can only raise money from individuals of $250 or less. No PACs, no corporate contributions are allowed with them.
Okay, fantastic. And thank you for bringing the bill.
Thank you. Are there any other questions for Senator Pinsky? All right. Thank you so much, Senator Pinsky. We're done with the hearing on Senate Bill 415.
Thank you very much.
We will move on to Senate Bill 883, Senator Gazzoni. Chairman Gazzoni.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Long time no see. This is a corrective bill in multiple senses. As you all know, as part of the Wayfair decision and part of the marketplace facilitator legislation, we very much wanted to create a level playing field between brick and mortar in the state and what was coming in over the internet. And this one specifically relates to premium cigars. And so the bill actually was brought to me by the National Association of the folks who are on the internet, which is interesting because you think they'd have less of an interest. But everybody agreed on this, both the brick and mortar and the internet providers all want to get it right. They want to be fair and have the same tax rate applied to everyone in the same way. And everyone came out agreeing with this legislation. So that's fundamentally what it does. It was really just dealing with technical issues to ensure that the taxes were collected correctly. There was no increase or change at all in the tax rates. And that is what the bill does. I actually have an amendment, which I hope your council has received at this point. And it relates to pipes, not the tobacco itself, but the pipe itself. And I don't believe it was our intention throughout this process to have those smoking device, if you will, and I think hookahs is also included in that, to be taxed at a higher rate other than to pay the sales tax. So what this amendment does is take, again, in a corrective sense, from at least my perspective, just literally would leave the sales tax on those products. And that is the entirety of it, Madam Chair.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Any questions from members about this bill? All right, fantastic. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you very much.
We're done with the hearing on Senate Bill 883. Senator Kagan, we have you next on two different bills, starting, if you could, with Senate Bill 374.
Thank you so much, Madam Chair. Great to be in Ways and Means. I see a lot of my friends here, and District 17's own Delegate Polakovich Carr. Special shout out to you. For the record, I'm Cheryl Kagan, very proud to be the senator for Gaithersburg and Rockville. Senate Bill 374 is just to codify what is currently ethics law and practice in terms of special sessions. As you all know, we can't raise money during the time that we are in session for our 90 days, but it does not cover special sessions. So it was a bit of a loophole. It is law in several other states. And so it just seemed like we ought to fix it here. As you all remember, after we adjourned early last session, there was a lot of conversation about having a special session last fall. We may be having one this year related to redistricting. So we don't know. There have been 61 special sessions since the General Assembly began as an independent body in 1777. The most recent one was just in 2012. So the bill as came in was modified with guidance and coaching from our own Dia Daly, and it just basically codifies the restrictions. If you have already scheduled a fundraising event, if you have already reserved a location, if you've already sent out invitations or spent money on the event, and your fundraising event were to be scheduled during a time that a special session were to then be scheduled, you could still go through with the event, but you couldn't be dialing for dollars. Usually special sessions are just 2 or 3 days, so it's not a huge inconvenience. But as always, we want to have the perception, if not the reality, of no conflicts of interest. The bill passed unanimously in committee and unanimously on the Senate floor, and I'm happy to take any questions.
Thank you, Senator. There originally was a hand up, but I think you ended up answering the question. Any questions on 374? All right, thank you, Senator. Seeing no questions, we're done with 374. Senator Kagan, Senate Bill 632.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Again, for the record, Cheryl Kagan, still very proud to be the senator for Gaithersburg and Rockville. Senate Bill 632 is to fill a gap in our law books about really close elections. And Madam Chair, thank you for sponsoring the cross-file, and I see Stan Ward and Jared DeMarinis with a new haircut to finally provide some guardrails on really close elections for and how we fund them, how we do transparency, and when recounts are even allowed. So just briefly, is there a problem? The answer is absolutely yes. So you may remember that Johnny Olszewski and Jim Brochin, there was a 17 vote or 0.03% margin for Baltimore County Executive. In Montgomery County, David Blair lost to now County Executive Mark Elrich by 77 votes, which was a 0.103% margin. There's another example in Howard County, 6 votes, again, 0.1%. So this has happened. And the question is, when should we have recounts? When is it worth the time and money of the government, the staff time, and who should pay for it? So, so we want to make sure, we want to boundaries. And what we came up with was 0.25% margin, as opposed to 0.1%, which was just way too narrow. 0.25%, if it's within that margin, and the examples that I gave would have included all 3 of those races, then the county would fund this and make sure that there weren't any mistakes or oversights. Up to, in excess of 0.25% and up to 5%, the candidate could ask for a recount if she or he thought there was really some egregious error or a reason to be concerned. But more than 5%, it's really a Hail Mary and it's a waste of time or money. But between 0.25 and 5%, the candidate would be responsible for paying for it. So that's when you can do the recount. Then how's it paid for and who raises money? We also needed to address the question of public financing, because there are 2 counties and could be more counties that do public financing. Ultimately, what the Senate passed unanimously was that that if you are a regular funded candidate with your regular account, you can use your regular account, continue raising money, and continue with the transparency and the reports that you would be doing customarily. If you are a publicly funded candidate, you would need to open up a new bank account, because you want to make sure that that there is a separation of funds, and you want to be able to disclose all of that. The counties can authorize more stringent regulations on fundraising activities, but fundamentally, since you're still able to get public monies for your efforts, we want to make sure that that the caps continue, that the funding guidelines continue, whatever the county said, if you raise more for your recount than is needed, and if you are a traditionally funded candidate with your regular campaign account, it stays in the campaign account and is publicly disclosed. If you raise in excess in this new account because you're a public financing candidate, the money would first go back to the government. And then if there's additional in excess of the cost of the recount, then it would be returned to the donors on a pro rata basis. Candidates still can self-fund, and that is a constitutional issue that has been addressed in courts. And I think that lays out the issues. So again, what we were trying to do was set some guardrails, set up a reasonable process, make sure there is transparency and disclosure, and you will see that there are regular disclosure calendars to make sure that folks know where the funding is coming from, and then again, address public financing in jurisdictions that use that. And currently that's Montgomery and Howard, but others are looking at it in the future. So with that, Madam Chair, happy to take questions.
Thank you, Senator. And I appreciated working on this bill with you. I just want to make it clear. I'll ask you just a very simple question. Is it true that there was a race in Prince George's County for county council in 2014 that the 6-vote margin fell outside of the 0.1%?
You may be right. I don't, I'm going to say yes, Madam Chair, but
That's the right answer. All right. And I would say to everyone that that six votes when there's many thousand made is, I think we could all agree is pretty close, and there could be concerns. Delegate Hornberger with a question.
Yes, thank you for bringing this very well thought out bill to the committee. I just had a technical question on that first level threshold that you described, where
Yes.
the county would pay for it. It's my understanding that either of those candidates in that scenario can still bring in attorneys or legal fees or watchers or paid, in other words, paid folks to oversee that recount. So my question is, if there is a very well-funded candidate versus a very grassroots, struggling to find resources candidate, and they fall into that first scenario, is there something barring the private attorneys, et cetera, from being brought in to kind of level that playing field for that first opt-in category?
That's an interesting question, Delegate Hornberger. I'm gonna, I think I might toss it to either Stan Ward or Jared DeMarinis, because legal fees weren't something we directly addressed. Bottom line is, it will become easier for any candidate, even a grassroots funded candidate who is on the brink of possibly being elected to office. That person is going to have newfound friends, I suspect, and
Sure.
who want to donate. And so their financial challenges may be ameliorated as if it's a close race. But Stan or Jared, do you want to pipe in and speak to that?
Jared, do you want to?
Sure. I said there is nothing that would prohibit that for legal fees or anything for the campaign to spend on that front there. So in fact, it's probably easier now because they can use their campaign funds for that. Perfect.
Right. Okay. All right. Thanks. And I appreciate all your hard work on the bill.
Thank you.
Thank you. One more question, Delegate Long.
Delegate Long, you're muted.
Oh,
Thank you. Can you hear me now?
yes, go ahead, Delegate.
Yep.
Thank you. Given that the recount is so close to the election, if a candidate's publicly financed, how are they going to be able to raise money enough to be able to pay for that recount if they need to?
That's what this bill takes care of. Senator, go ahead.
Yes, so it sets up the guardrails, the restrictions, and the transparency to make sure that they can. The candidate has the choice not to ask for a recount, and if they're really close, then the county will pay for it, and so far it's not an issue at all. The question is if they are between 0.25% and 5% and do want to try to raise the funds themselves. We are enabling them to do so, and then provide the disclosure so that people and the press know where their money was coming from for any candidate.
Well, thank you. I was just concerned about the time constraints because of the recount and be able to raise funds enough to be able to fully fund that recount. That was my question.
Yep, we all know how busy campaigns can be, and certainly there would be a pretty big crunch to try to get money in the bank account, and a recount doesn't start until after the election results are certified. There's a window of a few days after it's certified, so there is some, oh my, this is really close, and start raising money, and so it's not like you have to decide the day after election day.
Thank you.
Yeah.
And the challenge, Delegate Long, is that there's really no process in place now, particularly for publicly financed candidates,
Right.
raise money at all in these situations. The rest of us would always be able to. And even if, and as the senator said, even if you weren't getting a lot of funding beforehand, now that you're a likely candidate or possible, that it would be easier, but just this creates better transparency for it.
Right.
Thank you.
Madam Chair, if I could just add one more thing before we close, unless there are other questions.
Go ahead.
David Blair, there were, in that race with Mark Elbridge, there were 6 candidates. There were 129,346 total votes. And the margin between the first and second place candidates was 0.103. And because it was more than 0.1, again, 0.103, so it was 0.03%, he was going to be charged and estimated between $500,000 and $1 million to recount countywide. That's just unreasonable, and that was.
And it was just 70 plus, and it was just 70 plus votes, so.
Exactly.
Which is not much.
Right.
All right, thank you, Senator Kagan. If there's no other questions, we're going to take the next 2 out of order since Senator Hershey got here
Thank you all.
before
Take care.
the clock 30. Thank you, Senator Kagan. Senator Hershey, Senate Bill 841. Well, there you go. He's handing it back to you, Senator Kramer. Senator Kramer, Senate Bill 683.
Well, actually, Madam Chair, Senator Hershey was still in committee when I left to come over here. So I don't know whether he's got the message or not, but
go ahead.
Actually, he and I were debating when I bounced to come over. Thank you, Madam Chair. Ben Kramer to introduce Senate Bill 683. Ways and Means Committee, this bill should be pretty familiar to you, so I'm not going to take up a lot of your time. There is a cross file from Delegate Wilkins that is pretty darn close, if not quite identical to this, in the exact same posture. But the subject is almost spot on. I thank Delegate Wilkins for her work on the House side on this legislation, and Delegate Polakovich-Carr, who I know has been very invested in this as well. And committee, I will share with you that the Ways and Means Committee passed pretty much this exact same bill twice a decade ago. I guess like a fine wine, it needed a little bit of time to ferment, but evidently the Senate finally decided that its time had come, and they bottled it and put a cork in it. And the bill simply allows an individual who chooses to vote absentee or by mail to do so, and to sign up on a list to receive a vote by mail ballot in each of the elections, if that is what they choose. It puts in place the process by which that will occur, certain notifications to individuals who sign up ahead of the election to remind them that they have chosen to vote by mail. It includes language with regard to the need to facilitate returning ballots by adding drop boxes. It puts in place the process by which someone can request a vote by mail ballot, whether it's online or requested to be provided by other means. So the pieces are put in place. It puts in place the mechanism by which a person can terminate receiving the ballot by mail, or if they choose to change their address. So it puts in place a lot of the little pieces necessary to carry out the vote by mail process, and others will be left up to the State Board of Elections to ensure that the process is properly fulfilled. As passed by the Education, Health, and Environmental Matters Committee, Environmental Affairs Committee here in the Senate. It also provides that everyone prior to an election will receive an application if they choose to do so to vote by mail. The bottom line here, and I think this last election where we were forced due to the pandemic to do much of our voting by mail, really hammered home how important this opportunity is to so many of our registered voters so that they can participate in the democratic process. We had record numbers of voters participating from communities that don't typically turn out in the numbers they did, voting absentee or by mail. And there were multiple reasons for that, and I understand, but I think there's been a consistency, as was seen in the city of Rockville in their first election immediately following vote by mail, where the numbers increased dramatically. So the goal here is to give everyone every opportunity to participate in the democratic process, and hopefully we will facilitate that by encouraging people to vote by mail. With that, Madam Chair, I thank you. I'd certainly welcome any questions, but I'm guessing you all have pretty much worked through the details on this.
Thank you, Senator. Any questions for Senator Kramer? All right. Thank you very much, Senator. We're good. Have a good afternoon.
Madam Chair. And I'd like just to say thank you to you. You were the one who helped facilitate its passage back in 2010 and 2011. And I thank you for the assistance back then. And I'm hoping we get it across the finish line this year. Stay healthy, everybody.
All right. Thank you. To members, we're done with the hearing on Senate Bill 683. Senate Bill 841, Senator Hershey.
Thank you very much, Madam Chair. Can you hear me?
Yes, we can.
Okay, thank you very much. For the record, Senator Hershey to present Senate Bill 841, which as passed in the Senate is meant to incentivize the development of rooftop and brownfield solar projects by providing the opportunity of a statewide personal property tax exemption for community solar projects. This would occur in two different ways. One, the community solar equipment installed on a rooftop or over a parking garage or over surface parking may not be subject to county or municipal personal property tax. That same solar generating equipment will not be subject to increased value when assessing the property. This bill does not provide any tax exemptions on community solar projects that are ground-mounted systems. As amended, the bill addressed the concerns of MEA and the community solar industry. The bill, as amended, also makes the personal property tax exemption permissive rather than mandatory. With that, Madam Chair, I ask for a favorable report on Senate Bill 841. Thank you.
Thank you, Senator. Any questions for Senator Hershey? All right. Thank you, Senator Hershey. Seeing no questions on
Thank you
Senate
very
Bill
much.
841, we're done with the hearing on 841, and we're done with the hearing for today to members. We're, I guess, not back on the floor until 4 o'clock. I think some subcommittees might be meeting. Full committee will vote tomorrow afternoon between the possible double sessions again, but roughly at about 3 o'clock. Any subcommittee announcements?
Madam Chair, I have one.
Delegate Lukey?
Oh, I'll let Delegate Patterson go first. She jumped in there.
Oh, well, thank you very much, Delegate Lukey. Yes, racing and gaming tomorrow morning, 8:30. We have one bill we need to vote on. And then later in the week, there will be 2 bills. But for tomorrow, it's 8:30 a.m. Thank you.
All right, Delegate Lukey?
Thank you, Madam Chair. The Revenues Subcommittee, if I can pronounce the name of my subcommittee correctly, will be meeting today at 3 p.m. on 2 bills, and then on Thursday at 3 p.m. on a relatively long list of bills. So that one will take a while.
Delegate Wilkins?
Hi, everyone. The Election Law Subcommittee will be meeting this week, most likely. We have not confirmed the bills or the date yet. So I know we're moving quickly this week and the next couple of weeks. So I'll just be in touch as soon as possible.
Delegate Ebersol?
No, thank you, Madam Chair. Early Childhood is aiming for a meeting on Thursday at noon or whenever session ends. We have a handful of bills. There should be pretty easy ones. Most of them are matching senator, we're going to conform, or they're going to conform.
All right, excellent. Delegate Barnes, I think you guys already met last week, but are you meeting again this week?
I would just say ditto to what Delegate Wilkins said. Stay tuned.
And I don't see Delegate Washington here right now, but I think education might be, I'm not sure, but I think it's going to meet before tomorrow's full committee voting session. So thank you all. See you all. And we do have a hearing, of course, again tomorrow and the next day. And we're done. We're adjourned. See you all later. Thanks.